Got it. All right, thank you and welcome everybody. Thanks to those of you who put in the chat what your role is. If you haven't done that, if you could enter just your role into the chat box, that way Patty and I have an idea of who's here. It looks like the majority of people so far who are preschool teachers, so that's great. Anyway, Patty and I'll bounce back and forth during this presentation. And you should, Karen sent you out last night and again this morning, a copy of the PowerPoint, a PDF that has, I think, 3 slides per page. It was sent yesterday and again today. It's not an exact replica of the slides we're showing in the interest of saving some paper and not just printing out pages that only have photos on them. But if you haven't downloaded that or have access to it, you might want to do that in the next minute or so, so you have it. All right, we have to coordinate everything here. Okay, let me try to move the slide. Okay, so Patty and I'll introduce ourselves and then we'll get started. So I'm Mickey Ostrowski. I am recently retired after 33 years in the Department of Special Ed at the University of Illinois, Urbana-Champaign, and 5 years as a teacher before that. I am the mom of a 25-year-old who is or was a baseball pitcher and now is coaching at Louisville. So physical activities have been a huge part of our life. Was constantly busy as a child and moving and going and doing things. I also love to walk prior to retirement and more so even now when I have more flexibility, several miles a day, though today, I don't know if you can tell, it's pretty dreary here in Champaign. So I'm happy to be here with you today. Patty, I'll turn it over to you.
Sure. Hi, I'm Patty Favaza. And similar to Mickey, I'm a former early childhood special ed teacher, professor, EI director, research fellow. And the other hat I love to wear is my mom hat. And I have 4 children, 2 of whom have disabilities, who are now in their late 20s, early 30s. I can't believe I said that, how long that's been. I too am retired, actually, finally stopped working, but I looked back at when did I start in special education, and it was 45 years ago. 45 years, and then I stopped. I retired. So I can't believe I did that for 45 years, but totally loved it. All kinds of activities and physical activity in our house. Keeping 4 kids busy was high priority. And right now I'm living in New Hampshire. So if any of you like the snow and cold weather, this is the place to be. I used to be a cross-country runner. Now I walk a lot, snowshoes in the winter. And I'm a fair weather walker many days, so joined a gym and to stay physically active. So that's kind of my background. I'll go back to Mickey.
All right, thanks, Patty. Okay, so we want to acknowledge as we start this presentation, Patty was and is still closely associated with St. Anselm College. I'm at the University of Illinois, and we put IES, the Institute for Education Sciences, here because they were our funder for a large multi-site randomized controlled trial study that really led to the development of a curriculum and supported our interest in motor development for young children with and without disabilities. Um, Okay. So here's what our agenda is for today. We're gonna, since the early years are such an important time of growth and physical development for young children, and within the context of physical activities, children have the opportunity to develop not only gross motor skills, but large and small motor skills, and also skills in many other domains. So we'll be talking about that some. And then for early childhood professionals, we think the opportunities to embed these skill areas within your classroom within a really already busy preschool day. We tried to think a lot about what are some creative ways that we can embed opportunities for motor skill development during the day. So we're going to give a little background on physical activity, motor development. We're going to talk about the connection between these school readiness skills and in particular link movement, physical activity to literacy activities, pre-academics or cognitive skills and social development. And then at the end, we're going to talk a little bit about children's individual learning needs and making adaptations. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Patty, and she's going to get us started thinking about some childhood games.
Thanks, Mickey. So the first thing we did when Mickey and I started talking about doing this PowerPoint is we talked about our favorite childhood games, and they probably are things that you like to do maybe as a young child too, of hide and seek, Red Rover, Duck, Duck, Goose, etc. So we're asking you if you could go to the chat box and tell us what are some activities or games that, say, between preschool and grade 2 or 3 that you like to do when you were a young child, or your own children or your children in your classrooms like to do? What are things that they like to? It could be same as ours or some different ones. Duck, Duck, Goose. I see musical chairs. Oh, I forgot about that. Tag. Ooh, keepy uppy. I don't know that one. Catch, hide and seek. Yep. Duck, Duck, Goose. That must be a Northeast thing. I mean, a Midwest thing. Uppy, uppy. Mr. Fox. I remember that. Kick the can. Oh, I love these hopscotch musical chairs. And so these are great. Freeze dance. Oh, I forgot about that. Simon says. And what are the things that what did you like about it? What did you like about motor play? Put those in the chat box too. Let's see. Creative movement. I was always because I went too fast. Fun with friends. It's not boring, engaging, running wild. I like that. Chase games, monkey bars. Well, your responses, not only the activities, but also what did you like about it, are actually common across whether we're talking to parents, teachers, even kids. They say it's fun. They made friends. They got to be outdoors. Even heard some children and even some teachers who admitted it that they got out of chores in the house. And so we think actually that play is a universally enjoyable activity. And for many children, it may be their very first encounter with other children outside of their home, say during the preschool years or early childhood years. So it is so important that motor play is inclusive and structured in such a way as to support all children at their very first entree into learning with peers. Um, in addition, in the context of motor play, young children develop school readiness skills. In fact, motor play is a happening place. And if you look across these, school readiness skills include 5 interrelated areas of development: physical well-being and motor development, of course, but also social emotional skills, language skills, cognitive skills, and even approaches to learning, curiosity, sustained attention, following directions. And in addition to these, let's see if I can advance my slides. Of course, there are many benefits, and I did not list them all on here. It would take about 3 slides to do that. So I just put a couple of examples under each of these categories. Of course, it helps support physical health in children. If you think of just a couple of things of preventing obesity or bone health, in psychological health, self-confidence, social emotional skills, development, and in learning. So think of language, cognition, imagination, creativity, and so on. In fact, being physically active during motor play is critical to child development. And of course, we have, whoops, let me go back. We have decades of research to support this, that physical activity supports brain development, independent movement, and of course, those areas of readiness skills that we just mentioned. So now we're going to dig a little bit deeper and ask you to answer a question. So you'll go into the chat box. The question is, let me see if I can move that off. Yeah, there it goes. Answering true or false. When children are engaged in physical activity, they naturally become proficient in other areas of development. So just go to that chat box and you can put true or false. Let's see how we do. I'm watching it to see.
So can you not see the poll? We have 23 people all answered true.
Okay, there it is. I see it. I'm sorry, I was distracted. Um, well, as a matter of fact, the answer is false. So think of a child who's wearing a Fitbit or an accelerator. That Fitbit may show that they are very active. It's registering high physical activity level, but the child actually may be demonstrating self-stimulatory behavior. Or think of a child who does the same running around, crawling around over and over again. But while they're doing that in isolation or avoiding communication with others, or never applying or rarely applying that to a higher level motor activity, such as a game that might be occurring. In each of these examples, a child may have high physical activity registered on, say, a Fitbit or accelerometer, but they may have low development, limited things happening in other areas of development. Here's another question for you. Let's see if I can get it to, there we go. Again, true or false? Motor development is a series of milestones experienced in the same way by all children. So let's see how we do on this one. Oh, I'm looking at. So the majority, yep, looks like most people said false. So that was a really tricky one, and well done, everybody. You're right. It's a little bit true, but actually mostly false. So there's some truth to it, but there are so many variances in children that false would be probably the most correct on this one. So let's look at a review of something you probably already know, the developmental continuum of motor movement. And it, to me, is truly remarkable. In general, of course, as you may recall or you see every day, development progresses from big muscles to small muscles, from head to toe, and from the center of our body to extremities. And so just looking at the very bottom, a baby will first, of course, achieve that so important head and neck control, then the upper body, strengthen their arms, shoulders, upper torso, and then lower abdominal strength, leg strength and balance needing for crawling, pulling to stand, and walking. Really, truly remarkable. So those are, in general, our stages of motor development. And of course, the ages at the bottom are approximate because there are natural variances across children. Another way to look at this continuum is using Jane Clark's Mountain of Motor Development, which is what you're looking at here. These motor skills are then applied, the ones that we just saw on the previous slide, to real life situations, real life activities. And so if you look down at the bottom, not surprising, we have that reflexive period, birth to 2 weeks, but the child or infant immediately, very quickly moves into that pre-adaptive period. So if you think of, first of all, just as an example, a sucking reflex as a motor movement in that first early weeks, but they adapt to their environment, and instead of being fed by someone with a bottle or breastfed, they are actually reaching out to hold the bottle. They are crawling to get around or rolling to get around, adapting to their environment. The stage entitled Fundamental Motor Skill period is what I call the sweet spot. And that's where our presentation today is about in these preschool years and early childhood years. This is where all kinds of things are happening for children. They are learning to run, move, forward, backward, sideways, gallop, skip, hop, catch and throw and jump. It's just incredible, all of the motor skills that are actually being developed during this period. From that period, we move right into the context-specific motor skill period, and that's where we apply those motor skills to games and to more structured activities. So if you think of soccer, even for very young children, when my children were young, we called that herd ball. They really just learned to chase after the ball. And so I use that example because the unique thing about the context specific is it engages the cognitive component. That was the rule that they learned when they were very young. Okay, we're playing soccer and we follow the ball where the ball goes. If you think of a cognitive component as learning the rules of a game, 3 strikes, you're out. These are the boundary lines, etc. So cognitive component is engaged in that period. Skillful period, think of this as going to kicking camp if you're a soccer player, going to a pitching camp if you're a baseball player. And if you were to ever look this up, Jane Clark's Mountain of Motor Development, you'll see that there's even one more period up at the top that's called the compensatory period. And so that is where someone would compensate for previously held skills. So I used to be a cross-country runner, and now I walk instead of running every day. So you could change activities and compensate for my poor knees that don't like running anymore. You could also be in the compensatory period if you're shifting to using assistive technology, for example, using a walker or a cane when you walk. Okay. So let's go on to the next slide. Again, I should point out these ages are approximate because there are many variances. So what about motor development for preschoolers? Well, the bottom line is motor development does not happen automatically for all children, which is why all of you said false. There are many challenges that children face. And so I want you to think about the students that you have. What are things that you see that interfere or alter typical motor development and participation in physical activities? You can put that in the chat box. See what we come up with. Tiptoe. Okay, so maybe tiptoe walking. A weak core, very good. Low muscle, core strength might be a challenge for some children. Weak core, I see that a couple times. Other things you might see in children. Stimulation, yeah. General coordination. Or coordination, no exposure. There you go. No exposure or opportunities is another way to put that. Attention span may limit their capacity to participate. Increase in tablets, okay, attention span. So you're listing many things that when Mickey and I talk to teachers that they respond. Children may have specific motor deficits or low tone or physical disabilities that present challenges. They could also, in motor play activities, they could also lack social skills, capacity to attend. They might lack opportunities, lack equipment, even lack support from parents or teachers or opportunities to participate in more motor or physical activities. So let's touch on some of these challenges. I'm going to go through kind of a broad sweep of those. I saw one person listed computers or phones. It's the very first one on our list here. Children, many of them live in a sedentary culture. This was especially true during the pandemic, but of course, what we all know is that this was true before the pandemic, and it is still true today. Great deal of screen time, competition for physical motor play because of TVs, computers, video games, cell phones, etc. So one huge challenge that we see. A second one is, and some people mention this, that they may have specific characteristics that present motor challenges for them associated with their disability. And so I just put two here, a child with autism and a child with developmental disability such as Down syndrome. So I'm not going to read through all of these, but what you'll see is there are variances across these two children. But then there are some things that are similar. So I highlighted one, sedentary behavior may be a function of their disability and need more intentional support for that. So they have potential challenges that can have negative impact on physical activities. And these are just two examples. that we have here. And if you want to read more about it, there's a citation down at the bottom of this one, that several citations that this is well documented by many researchers. Couple this fact with the fact that there are increasing numbers of children with disabilities and delays enrolled in inclusive early childhood classes, many of whom lack school readiness skills and sufficient levels of physical activity. So these motor challenges indicate a need for adults to intentionally support development of children's fundamental motor skills. Really critical. Other challenges, even children without disabilities, but also this could apply to children with disabilities, could have other challenges that interfere with their participation in physical activities and motor play. So social skills, if you look at these and you may come, thought may come to mind some children that you work with that have challenges in getting along with others, turn taking, communicating with others. Even when Mickey and she talked about, we ran a program, Champs, developed that in preschool classes. Sometimes part of them participating in a particular activity was to teach them how to call out the other child's name so that the child knew the ball was coming to them. Michael, look. And so even interacting and communicating with other children can interfere with their capacity for play. Approaches to learning, which I touched on that briefly, but some children's willingness to try new activities, they're hesitant or they don't want to join in. Or if they do join in, sustaining their participation or completion of activities, following directions, and so on. So motor skill development is shaped by both the strengths that a child has and the challenges within that child, and dependent upon the supportive opportunities that they are given to advance their abilities. Here's another area we often don't think about, that when you add poverty to the equation, development is compromised. I just put one citation here for this, but there are many much research out in this area that even a child who's born healthy could show gradual decline in development across a variety of areas, which persists for years unless that is attended to. This area also shows a fifth factor, and it's probably one of my favorite ones to chat about because I saw this when I worked in not only in various cultures and communities, diverse cultures and communities in the US, but in other countries. For example, in a Bolivian village where I worked early in the morning, I could see 5-year-old boys. I know that because I went and asked how old they were. And hey, what are you doing up this morning? And they were seen walking long distances, asking them where did they live? And it was quite a ways, balancing things atop his head and food and water and wares to be sold. At the same time, I was working in a Nicaraguan village with Mosquito Indian and villagers, and boys and girls had different tasks. Boys cut and carried the wood, and girls carried siblings and fetched water for cooking. At the same time, when I was teaching in the US, we work with 5-year-olds and they weren't allowed to hold sharp tools like you might see some of these children have, or move about independently in the town where they lived. So if you want to read an excellent book, it is while dated, as you can see, 2003, it is still relevant today. The Cultural Nature of Human Development by Barbara Rogoff. Fascinating read and wonderful examples from around the globe and across the US of variances in motor development related to gender roles, independence, autonomy, and opportunities that children are given. So the bottom line is actually cultural context matters, what's allowed within the culture and within the family, home, and community. Lastly, these were things that through our research that we repeatedly heard from teachers, that there are additional systemic barriers to having motor activity in the classroom. And We saw this not just in one study, but across several studies that teachers believe that it hindered child development. So, for example, lack of policy. Some schools that we were in, they didn't have a district policy about structured play or play in general in the preschool years, or a motor curriculum that their teachers could turn to assist them in leading motor movement in their classroom. Uh, they've also reported increased focus on academic outcomes. And in fact, many times they would say to us the first thing that goes out of the school day, they have to shorten the day or cut something out, was actually the physical activity of children. Of course, we all know the challenge of half day versus full day. You can't do in a half day what is able to do in a full day. Um, Teachers' lack of confidence and knowledge was reported to us, as well as their lack of access to safe, appropriate playground and outdoor spaces. And they also added lack of resources, both within the school and within their community. So all of this sounds like Debbie Downer, but the good news is, and there is good news, that children are highly motivated. They're highly motivated to use their bodies, to move, to use equipment and materials, and parents, teachers, early interventionists, can do so many, many things to support their development. So I'm going to hand this back over to pass the baton to Mickey.
Thanks, Patty. That's great. So one of the first things we did and that teachers do when they start to think about, well, how am I going to incorporate more motor skills, motor play, and physical activities into my classroom is to look at what are some of the professional guidelines that we have out there. We've listed two here, the DEC, the Division for Early Childhood Recommended Practices, which list some of those key goals or outcomes we expect for young children, and which include preschool age children, around motor development and physical activity, and also Shape America, which is from the Society of Health and Physical Educators. Also, there are state-specific guidelines. For example, in Illinois, we have the Illinois Early Learning and Development Standards on physical development and motor health. So those are often a starting place for people when they start to think, how can I embed this more into my curriculum and what are the goals I want to focus on? So we want to start here with just defining so we're all at the same place around what are some common terms and how Patty and I are using terms and make sure that we all have the same understanding. We're going to begin by defining two basic terms, physical activity levels and types of activities as a starting place for understanding. So when we talk about physical activity levels, and we're talking about for preschoolers in particular here, when we think about we often kind of categorize those into three different areas. When we think about sedentary physical activity levels, that's things like reading books or playing a board game, playing Life or Trouble or playing Uno, taking a nap, which Patty and I both love to do. So, and it unites us. When we think about light or moderate physical activities, we think about things like walking, but at a slower pace. So, and on a level surface or down the stairs, walking to and from class. We think about things like yoga or playing on the swings. They take a little bit of energy, but not a whole lot. Might be rolling or throwing a ball back and forth. When we think about vigorous activities, those are ones that really get your heart rate up. And those might be things like skipping or jogging, speed walking, exercises that have intense effort, like doing jumping jacks or jumping rope, dancing with high intensity. So those are kind of how you typically will read or think about the different physical activity levels for preschoolers and where we want to get them to. When we think about the types of activities, we often talk about three types of physical activity: unstructured motor in music play, and semi-structured or structured motor intervention or activities. So when we think about unstructured motor play, we're talking about things like free play outside, or if you call it recess or outdoor play, where children really can do kind of what they want to do. So they have opportunities to run around, but some children might just go and stand near a fence and kind of, watch things. They may not really be engaged in motor play during that time. When we think about unstructured motor and music activities, those tend to be brief motor experiences for the whole class led by teachers. So think about during a transition from large group or morning meeting to small group, you might have children shake the wiggles out. So do some little activity and put some music on where they do something unstructured, a little bit unstructured. Then when we think about structured motor interventions, how those are typically talked about in the literature, those that often are designed for children with motor delays or disabilities, and they tend to be led by a physical therapist, a PT, an OT, an adaptive physical education teacher for children with disabilities, say in an elementary building. But they also include things like dance and soccer, t-ball, so things that are structured that someone is leading and they're in a structured way. So we have certain goals that we have for those activities. So we're going to go back and do another poll. So when you think about national guidelines or just your own gut reaction about what do the national guidelines say about the amount of physical activities preschoolers should have? So if you go on the screen, that the poll that Karen has put up, do the guidelines say that children should engage in 180 minutes of physical activity, at least 60 minutes, or 2 hours? So if you just pick one of those three. Give it a few more minutes. How much in a day do you think children should be engaged? Okay, some of you are being shy about putting in your response, it looks like. But those of you that said 180 minutes, 3 hours of daily physical activity is what the national guidelines say about the amount of physical activity preschoolers should have. So think about the preschoolers you know. Think about children who, as Patty talked about, who spend a lot of time on screen time. Think about, are they getting 3 hours of physical activity? Oops. Okay, there we go. Um, so now let's think about the type of physical activity. So if we know that children are supposed to have about 3 hours of daily physical activity, which do you think the national guidelines suggest as the type of physical activity? At least 60 minutes or 1 hour should be spent in structured physical activity. 60 minutes up to several hours should be spent in unstructured physical activity, so 1 to 2 hours or more. All 3 hours should be spent in unstructured physical activity, or D, that includes both A and B. Which do you think it is? I'll give you a minute to read that and kind of process it. Okay, so a lot of you guessed D, and that's actually the correct answer, that the Office of Disease Prevention and Health Promotion, as well as the Society for Health and Physical Education that I talked about before, both recommend that daily children should have about 60 minutes of structured physical activity plus 60 minutes to several hours or more of unstructured physical activity. So just kind of gauge that. And with the thinking about the children you know, your children that you have yourself, children you teach, and think how close are you to that type of physical activity occurring. And when we think about these data and these recommendations, we're not the only ones who suggest that. So it's not just in the United States. Canada, the UK, Australia, other countries also have the same kind of recommendations for physical activity throughout the day, having 3 hours of physical activity. So we're not alone in suggesting that and having that as a goal. So with multiple types of physical activity, all children can benefit, and that's if they receive the appropriate support from teachers and caregivers. So this research, started as it's a good place. Motor activity or physical activity is a good place for children to improve motor skills as well as social skills, communication skills, pre-academic skills. But they bring up the importance of caregivers in supporting children's physical activity. So we need to think about what we can do to assist children. So let's start by focusing on motor development and physical activity level during motor play. So we have three ideas we want to talk about here of ways to increase physical activity across the day. So just thinking about how can we, in fact, add more physical activity to the day. And I'm going to go through each of these, creating motor opportunities, taking physical breaks that involve, or taking periodic breaks, excuse me, that involve physical activity, and then thinking about how to embed gross motor opportunities across the curriculum. So we'll go through each of those three ideas. So first, when we think about creating motor opportunities, in a supportive environment, we have to think about both the physical environment and the social environment. So we need to make sure that the physical environment is safe, that there's ground rules, that there's enough space. So if children are doing activities, they're not bumping into each other, that there's appropriate monitoring and enough monitoring. If we have centers or stations and one of them includes some kind of motor activity, we need to make sure that where that is located and how do we calm children down or kind of bring them back to a calmer state if they've been kind of geared up during a motor activity to move on to another center or another activity. And then we need to think about materials, the selection of materials. Are they age appropriate? Do they meet the range of multiple abilities? And are they different sizes given the age of the children in your classroom? So those are some of the physical environment things we want to consider when we're thinking about creating more motor opportunities within a supportive environment. When we think about the social environment, we want to think about modeling. Like, do we have adults who can actively demonstrate and also participate in the activity so that they can model for children what to do? Do we have peer partners, peer buddies who, and have we kind of advanced planned to partner children in some kind of system or rotation so that they can encourage so they can engage with each other during these motor opportunities, physical activities? Do we encourage children and families by saying things to children like, wow, you're a good jumper. Show me how high you can jump. So providing that descriptive positive feedback. And do we acknowledge things to both families and children? Things like, I saw or I heard that you took Jake for a hike this weekend. And also you sharing motor ideas with families for things that are going on in the community that involve physical activity and acknowledging when families say that they engaged in those activities. To create motor opportunities, you don't have to spend a lot of money. So Patty and I thought a lot in our research about what were things we know preschool teachers often spend their own money to buy materials. So what were things that were inexpensive that teachers might already have in their classroom or that would be relatively cheap to purchase? And also what were things that families might have in their home that they could use to support motor activities? So you'll see things on this slide like you could do bean bags and buckets and tapes where you make a line by using painter's tape and put a bucket at the end of the line and have children put their bucket on their head or on their shoulder, walk a line to dump it into the bucket or toss it into the bucket. You might use things like a paper plate and put a small ball or a block or something that you already have in your classroom and walk from one line to another so children are balancing it. You might tape construction paper on the wall and have children throw a ball or a beanbag to specific colors. You might use bubbles that you already have and have children jump and catch the bubbles or sing the ABCs as they're hitting the bubbles or count the number of bubbles that they're popping. Bowling, you might use old water bottles that you fill with glitter or sensory materials. You might have balloons that you can encourage children to keep the balloon off the floor as a group, a small group or a large group, or partner with another child and pass the balloon back and forth. Things like freeze dance, again, don't even need any materials for that. Or hula hoops, you saw in one picture, children can use it to as a hula hoop is designed, or they could use it to jump from one hula hoop to another. So there's activities you can think about that don't really cost a lot of money that are use the materials you already have and can have multiple purposes. So what are some activities you might try? Here's some pictures of things we've seen in classrooms. Making your own line with painter's tape. It can be down the hallway. It can be in the gym, in a classroom, out the door. Encouraging children. Today we're going to go on the green line or the straight line. Today we're going to go on the curved line or the red line. Today we're going to go on the zigzag line or the blue line. So you can teach other skills too while you're doing this, but an inexpensive way to use painter's tape. You can also do things like mat racing, like you see in this picture, where you use cloth mats, sorry, or place mats, and children can race each other. Also, you're using chalk and simple pictures or some of a child's favorite things like buttons or acorns or small rocks or bean bags or small plastic blocks. Children toss those into different numbers or at different pictures that you've placed within the circles. So you can do things with sidewalk chalk outside. Okay, the second idea for increasing physical activity across the day is to take frequent or periodic physical activity breaks. So when you think about two typical indoor activities, center time and large motor time, or snack time and a rest time if you're in a full day class that has a rest time. So whatever two indoor activities, you might have a physical activity break. Could be in your classroom. You need to think about how children are positioned so they're at least an arm's length away from each other. And then thinking about how you might do those breaks, you might have a warm-up activity where children are trying to kind of focus and also get their breathing up a little bit, increase their heart rate a little bit. So you might spend 2 minutes or so just slowly getting children, kind of think about yoga, raising their hands, bending a little, being in poses. Then you might do something for you might do an activity that's a physical activity portion of this, that the goal for a preschooler might be 4 to 6 minutes of jumping, dance in place, running in place, hopping. You might want to, that's what your goal is. You might at the beginning only do it for a minute, and then over time increase that as the year goes by. So you do some physical activity portion where children are really increasing their heart rate, and then doing a cool down activity where again, you're doing something like yoga or stretches, bringing children back to center, bringing children to calm down a little. Teachers have found those kind of activities really good for focusing children, but also helping them transition from one activity to another and giving them an opportunity to get the wiggles out, to do a little bit of physical activity and stretch their bodies. The third type of activity or recommendation that Patty and I have for increasing physical activity across the day is to think about how you can embed school readiness skills into physical activity, or physical activity into school readiness skills. There are so many other skills beside motor that children can learn during physical activity and vice versa. So many physical activities that children can do as they engage in learning will help support these school readiness skills. So we can really think about these. So you can embed school readiness skills into motor play. So if you look at the first picture, the child is moving a ball along the number 2. So we've got an academic skill, but the child's doing a motor skill while children are learning about the shape of the number 2. In the second picture, you see children engaging in gross motor imitation or activities with peers. So think about children who might struggle socially, might not know their peers' names, might not have many friends yet. So thinking about activities that children can do where they're engaging with peers. Again, if you go back to the example I had about the balloon, things like that where they're engaging with a child around a motor activity, like keeping a balloon in the air, tossing it to a partner, they're also working on their social skills. And then the third one, hopping onto specific colors that are called out. Again, there might be some colors on the floor, and a peer might call those out, teacher might call those out. And so you can do those kind of activities. And this is a great way to not only improve motor outcomes, but also impact these other areas of development and school readiness skills. So we're going to make sure I don't start it yet. Okay, we're going to look at a video of a teacher doing some motor activities, and I want you to think about what are some school readiness skills you see on the video. If you can just stick them in the chat as you see different activities going on, or you go, oh, that's a school readiness skill, just stick them in the chat, and then Patty will help me as they go by quickly, see what they are. So I will start this, I hope. Yes. Maybe Patty, you might need to help me. Oh, here we go. Oh, nope.
Let me try.
Yeah, please. Thank you. Okay, here we go.
Nice job. You got the bird. Where's the bird? Is it on the bottom or the top? Awesome. Look, I got letters for you. Kaylin, throw it at the giraffe, Kaylin. Good job. Oh, look it, they're up here. Your turn. Good job. Keep going, Malik. Throw it at the pig. Throw it at the bee. Yeah? Good job. Good job. Now throw it at the D. You throw it at the lion. Good job. Go get him. Go get him.
Okay, I'll give you a minute to jot some things in the chat that you saw, some school readiness skills that you heard this teacher supporting through this pretty simple activity of poster boards with some circles like snowmen with some things taped to it.
So I see letter recognition, throwing balls at letters, names, learning vocab, self-regulation, letters,
Direction. Yeah, I see directions, top, bottom, maybe. Yeah,
positional words, following directions.
great. She also said a couple other things I noticed. She animals, so she gave animal names. So there was some of that, specific animal names. And she provided individual support to children and individualized the activity. So while some children were working on letters, other children were working on animals. And she prompted children who weren't participating, and I know it went by really quickly, but if children were kind of paused and holding into the beanbag, weren't sure what to do, she prompted them along the way. So great. Okay, and then the last slide for this section is we gave Karen a handout that has a lot of links to tip sheets that we've developed by a project that I'm associated with by the Illinois Early Learning Project. Some of you might know that you can download for free, and these can be sent home to parents, families, or caregivers. Or you can use them yourselves. You can send them the links in a newsletter, but they give some ideas that include some motor activities, music and movement, or other kind of motor activities that can be done with young children. The one particular that's on the slide includes ideas for things that you can do while you're waiting. And there's a whole list of those that Karen will upload to later on after this webinar that you should be able to access tomorrow. There's a couple handouts that we got a little bit late to get embedded into the presentation. So they'll be there for you tomorrow. So now I'm going to turn it over to Patty, and she's going to specifically focus on the school readiness skill of literacy and thinking about how we can link motor and school readiness skills. So Patty, it's your turn.
Okay, thanks, Mickey. Well done. So everybody's favorite thing in early childhood, storybook reading. It's probably the most common activity that supports literacy skills in children, irrespective of a child's ability or their culture or their language. And in fact, as we all know, in that context of reading and literacy, children can learn, of course, the meaning of text and vocab. They can connect the content to their own personal lived experiences and gain knowledge about a variety of topics. But what we oftentimes don't think about is it could also be a good opportunity to encourage movement in children. So we often refer to this, Mickey and I do, as the unlikely pairing of literacy and motor movement. So we're going to do start like we did when we talked about your favorite games. What were some of your favorite storybooks when you were a very young child, or your own children, or your students when they were in the early childhood years? So I see Silly Sally. Let's see what put them in. Yeah, Good Night Moon. Ooh, my favorite. Little Blue Truck. What else? Giving Tree. Yep. What were some more other favorites? Anything bluey? Oh yeah, Chicka Chicka Boom Boom. We hear that listed a lot. Snowy Day, Give a Moose a Cookie, Give a Moose a Muffin, Caps for Sale. Oh, I love that one too. Dr. Seuss, anything Dr. Seuss, my kids loved. And I'm gonna ask you the same question. What is it about storybook time and reading that was what did you like about it, or what did your children or students like about it? Again, put those in that chat box. Let's see what you come up with. Cuddly time. I love that. Reading going to the reading rug, one-on-one time. Even with my own kids now, me too. Even my grown kids come home and we pull out their old books. New worlds and ideas, blankies, one-on-one. Drawn into a book, yes, and a story. Story time with, I can't read the end of that one. Let's see. Move my chat box.
With the class, story
With the
time with the class.
class. Yeah, I can even remember as a child, one of my favorite things was to put your heads down and listen to the teacher read to all of us when I was a young child. And so I think, oops, sorry. Let me go back. So fun with reading, fun with parents or other kids are often the things that are listed there, or children loving to do the pull the tabs or push or touch things that had textures or act out the motions or active motor movements with it. Igniting imagination. These are things that teachers often would say to us and parents alike. So, like play, we also think that story time can be a universally enjoyable activity for many children. And of course, that often can begin in the home, their first encounter or experiences with reading, or in preschool, early childhood classrooms. So it's important that we make it fun, and it's especially important during those preschool years. And we found that it was an easy thing when we were running some of our studies to connect to motor play using what we call interactive movement books. So, what exactly is that? Well, interactive movement books, and you see a couple of them here that people mention in the chat box, are basically a subset of children's books that require participation and interaction by the reader, but also by the listener. And so through those interactive books, children have the opportunity to engage with the content in a different way by moving their bodies. And these are some of our favorites. In fact, Goodnight Moon was one of our favorites in my own home. But even when I worked in preschool, we might use it at rest time, and converted it to finding things in the classroom, kind of like I Spy with my little eye, identifying things and moving around the classroom to find things. So all of these books that you see here, and there are many, many more that have opportunity for motor engagement. When we started trying to put this into a curriculum for teachers, we came up with a checklist. So this is an abbreviated version of our checklist for selecting interactive movement books. But one of those handouts that you'll get later after the webinar is over will include the full list of criteria for selecting preschool interactive movement books. But in general, we wanted books, of course, to be age appropriate for preschool children, interactive in some way that has some elements that encourage children to move in different ways. The story incorporated different positional words, different body parts, as well as different action words. It emphasized cooperative play with family and friends as opposed to competitive play. It, of course, had terminology that was current as well as images that were current, and represented diversity. And when we thought about diversity, we really applied this in a very broad sense. So diversity could apply to having within the storybook a wide range of characteristics of the characters that were in the book or story time, a wide range of motor movements, a wide range of characters. So, for example, multiple types of animals that move in different ways. It could have diversity related to food that is introduced in the book as well, as languages, race, gender, ethnicity, and abilities. So when you think about representation of diversity, it really was a broad application of that to preschool story time. The last one on there, and really at the encouragement of teachers, that we wanted to select books that did not promote undesirable behaviors. So if you think of the book 10 Little Monkeys Jumping on the Bed, which my own children in my own house love to do that, teachers brought up that example as well as other examples of things that they felt like they didn't want to encourage. And certainly if a parent chooses to do that, that's in their home. But in our school setting, we wanted to make sure that it did not have themes that were considered to be unsafe, scary, violent, or unacceptable. So again, knowing the community of children that you have and the age of the children that you have, looking at books that really encourage desirable behaviors. Based on this, we created a checklist to support parents and teachers in selecting books, and you will get the full version of that. But if you could kind of look at these things that are on this slide, because I'm going to ask you to look at a book. We're going to watch a book read to us, and you tell me what do you see that is highlights or meets some of these elements of this checklist in this story. So our story is going to begin now, and you can just put them in the chat box. Oops, where did it go? Let's see.
The sound just disappeared.
Patty, can you hear it? Because we can't hear it anymore.
Okay, I'll stop it. I think we've seen enough. Can you hear me now? Sorry, sounds like my sound worked, but sounds like it might have gone off for you. But what did you see? Let's see, stretching, jumping jacks, many more. Great, interactive, encourages desirable behavior. Yes, age appropriate. Yes. What else did you see? Anybody else? Lots of food was introduced, lots of animals, age appropriate, it's current, yes, and this book has been around for a while and I still find it current. It does well across time. Using lots of body parts and movement, variety of movement. Let me see. I'm trying to get back on to advancing. There it is. So if we looked at all of these, was the criteria met? There were so many things that you listed that included body or body parts, action words, diversity across all kinds of things, different animals, different foods, different equipment, different body parts, and so on. So this one would be, yes, definitely at the top of our list of meeting all of those criteria. Another thing you could do with this idea of inserting motor movement, even in ones that was clearly focused on motor, would be to generate your own movement ideas using children's books. Having trouble, Mickey, advancing. There it is. Thank you. So this is something, it's kind of like a little homework for you. I don't know if you're familiar with Storybook Nanny. It's online. I love this website. And one of the things you could do is go to this and find stories that are out there or go to other sources that you happen to like and pull up books and see what kinds of motor activities you could generate to go with a particular story. So the one I picked, Snowy Day, because that's familiar to many who are in early childhood. The Snowy Day, what movement activities could you think of for use with this particular story? And you will have that checklist that you can come up with, making sure you meet all of those criteria. But here are a couple of examples that teachers have come up with of toes in, toes out. throwing snowballs, even if you don't live in a snowy place like I do. Teachers talked about making yarn balls, Nerf balls, rolled up socks for snowballs, and coming up with all kinds of games for that, for throwing with distance, accuracy, colors, numeracy, letters, and so on. They also found that toes in, toes out, they found a variety of ways to make footprints and have those patterns in the sand, in the dirt, in the snow. They also came up with a variety of winter-related vocabulary related to clothing, related to winter equipment, shovels, snow blowers, window scrapers, sports such as sledding, skating, skiing, and clothing, coats, hats, mittens, and so on. So many, this is really an incredible treasure for coming up with a variety of language activities, cognitive activities, motor activities within this story. So it's kind of our challenge to you that pull up some of your favorite books and see if you could come up with generating your own motor activities for those books.
Hey, Patty.
Another area I'm going to shift to.
Patty,
Yeah.
someone asked if we could possibly go back to the book and read it again since they couldn't hear it, the Maisie book. I don't know what you think about that with the background music. Do you want to read a couple pages of it, or do you think that would be too hard?
I can try. Yeah, you mean me give voice
Yes.
to it?
Yeah, since they couldn't hear any voice.
Yeah,
Um,
let me see if it allows me to speak while I'm trying to go back. Yeah.
I'll go back. I don't know whether it will or not, but we could try for a second, do even a couple pages.
Okay, sure.
So I can read it if you want, if yours is having the sound. It says Hop, Skip, and Jump Maisie is the title of the book. When Maisie wakes up, she wiggles and stretches and touches her toes like this. Outside, Maisie runs and hops and jumps like this. In the park, Maisie chases and races and kicks a ball like this.
And on each of those pages, they ask you what does a certain animal do?
Yeah. So you kind of get the idea. There it's fruit, has fruit, kind of tells about her day. In the afternoon, Maisie skateboards and skips and jumps rope like this. And then there are
So who
questions, as
else
Patty
can
said.
skip? Yep.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
So I hope you get the idea of what that is.
Yeah. That good?
Yep, that's great. Thank you.
Okay, sure. Yeah, I'm sorry you can't hear it. On mine, it's so loud I can hardly hear you speak. I mean, I'm turned the volume down, but okay. So we're going to kind of shift here and talk about incorporating basic relational concepts into physical activities. Okay. So what is that? Like, why teach it and what is it? These are terms related to quantity, space, and time. And oftentimes they are difficult for children to understand these concepts in the abstract. So if you think about a relational concept, this is small, this is large. In the abstract, without having concrete things in front of you or activities to help children grasp all of these relational constructs or concepts, it may be challenging. You're trying to visualize an abstract construct in the absence of a concrete example. Another reason it might be challenging is there's no constant referent. So, for example, the shortest animal in this group of animals may be the tallest, or the straw that's at the front of the line may be in the middle of a line or a row of straws in another set of straws. And so that kind of makes generalization challenging because it's relative to the context. So it makes that challenging for young children. Also, preschoolers with disabilities and delays, they may have challenges with some of these. that it might be as a part of their disability. So one of my children has a language-based learning disability, and these were very difficult for her to see without motor movement of placing her in positionally so she understood the change in positions, as an example. Or children with visual impairments who I work with who couldn't actually see where placement of objects were or people were. So that also can present challenges. Lastly, and I skipped over this notion of generalization. So, a term such as high and low can mean different things. It could refer to a sound, a high note and a low note. It could refer to where is something in space. The block is on the top of the stairs in a high place. The block is on a lower step in a low place on a staircase. So they have different meanings for space and sound, as an example. So the meanings are not constant as well, depending on context. So those are some of the challenges of that. And so we think using physical activities as a bridge to learning concepts makes sense. It provides concrete, visible references so children can touch and see and use those concepts in motor movement while you're teaching and learning those relational concepts. They can learn it while they're having fun, which of course sustains their attention in the natural context of motor play. The physical activities can be structured to meet a curricular goals as opposed to free play. So while there is a place for children to have unstructured play, and it's certainly necessary, there are also times when it could be structured to meet goals with lessons and objectives and vocabulary. We also found that physical activities can be structured to increase participation. So, for example, in free play, what we would do is we'd observe children. For example, I always remember a couple of children who were on the autism spectrum just wandering around the playground, running their fingers along the fences, all on the edges of the playground. Because there was no motivation or prompting to increase participation, even though there were games going on that other children had started playing together. So physical activities can be structured so we increase participation of all children. And the last point on there is, and Mickey pointed this out, physical activities can increase both academic and non-academic opportunities when we embed some of these relational concepts and literacy and school readiness skills within the context of motor play, then we're addressing multiple domains at the same time. Okay. So here's an example of what are basic relational concepts. They're related to space, quantity, and time, and there are many, many that go under each of these. I just put a couple of examples that represent these. They are considered the building blocks of critical thinking, the building blocks of problem solving, learning, and instruction, all of which are related to cognitive development. So really critical. If you wanted to see a lot of examples of it, I would suggest looking at the Boehm test of basic concepts that you would just have so many examples more, and also assigning age appropriateness to when they learn different concepts. So why do we use these basic concepts, or why do children use it, or we as teachers use it? Well, young children use these relational concepts to explain events or to understand how we're organizing an experience or describing objects across context. So there's an example. It might be me saying, after we finish reading the book, we're going to the playground. After we finish dinner, we're going to have we begin bedtime stories. So it helps explain events. It helps us organize our experiences. I'm on top of the slide and my mom is at the bottom of the slide. It also helps describing objects. I want the biggest balloon. I want the smallest balloon. I want to stand in front. I like standing in the back. So what we see is it's critical in daily use. children. So here's just an example of 3 to 4 year olds. What would they be learning? And of course, what we know is children start with very basic things of up and down, top and bottom, oftentimes referred to as opposites. But it is expanded from there, both across space, quantity, or time. So if you look at something being empty or full, those are examples of opposites as well. But what you see as you continue on these is the delineation is increases. So you might start with this is small and this is large, and then you might go to smaller and larger and smallest and largest, of course. And so similarly with children 4 to 6 years of age, what we see is as the child grows and develops, that they learn more nuanced relational concepts that become more complex as they age. Okay. Not surprising, all of these concepts align with state standards. Quantity concepts of more, less, whole, part, full, and empty, knowledge of size and comparisons, especially when making comparisons, two-dimensional sizes, or even two-dimensional and three-dimensional objects. So children starting off learning, width and height, square and circle and triangle as shapes. And then they are converting those into three-dimensional concepts of cube or sphere or pyramid. So even tall and long, and we shift to thinking about things about what is the width, the height, and the weight of something. So certainly are building blocks for other learning, higher levels of learning. Relational concepts also such as top and bottom, near and far, inside, outside, and so on. All of these, when we are reinforcing them in the context of physical motor play activities, we are actually addressing state standards. So now I'm going to pass it back to Mickey.
All right, thanks, Patty. Okay, everybody, you're in the home stretch now. We're going to show several videos during this segment where we give you some more ideas. And we'll start with a focus on these relational concepts that Patty just talked about, and how to consider how to merge physical activities and these type of concepts. We've also included with what Karen will send out tonight, a PDF of an article we wrote with Catherine Chung, one of our colleagues, that talks about merging the cognitive skills and motor. So I'm going to have you watch a video, and as you're watching it, think about what relational concepts you see the teacher addressing as she engages as the children engage in motor play. Let's see if I can get it. Can you hear it, Patty? Why does it not? Can everybody else hear it? Because now I can't hear it.
No, I cannot hear.
Patty, can you try it? Can you try stopping it and you try doing it? It's so odd. It worked when we practiced 2 hours ago. No, can't hear a thing. All right, well, let me describe it to you. I'm really sorry about that. We practiced this to make sure all the videos worked. In this activity, you'll see the children are going on an obstacle course. They're using these, oh my gosh, I'm blanking on the word for them. These tall, these things, some of which are cut. Huh? Tell me, Marcia. Thank you, pool noodles. Thank you. Yes, I just used one in Florida a couple of weeks ago, and I'm like blanking. Okay, pool noodles. We cut them in different sizes, so children could choose. They want a big one, they want a little one. Patty, can you play it one more? Well, here, it'll keep going for the another teacher doing it. They could choose the size of them. We talked about these being a horsey. They were going on the obstacle course, climbing on top of things, walking on like a balance beam, the blue that you see across the back. They were setting an apple, so a small piece of the pool noodle on top of their horsey, carrying it across. If it dropped, they had to pick it up. So there were conversations about, on top of, it fell, going fast, going slow, holding on to the top, holding on to the bottom. Is it a tall one, a short one, a long pool noodle, and then they would put the apple into the bucket and then gallop back across. So pretty, and you can see these little children doing that. Pretty easy activity. Using materials that a lot of things that the teacher had in her room or that were pretty cheap to find at like a dollar store, but using a lot of relational concepts or highlighting a lot of relational concepts during that activity. If you could have heard the teacher, you would hear and think about too her communication style because she highlighted or emphasized a lot of those relational terms. Put the apples in the bucket. Do you want the long pool noodle or a shorter pool noodle? Put your hands up higher on the pool noodle so that you won't drop your apple. So her communication style incorporated these concepts of space and quantity and time. Are you going fast? Slow down some. As well as provided opportunities for children to describe their world. So she modeled for them and they could talk about these activities too. So we think communication style is important, and us emphasizing and modeling these kind of words really helps a child. Here's another activity that you can look at and think about. There's no sound anyway to this one, so it won't matter. But just think about what skills are supported in this activity. I don't know whether it will have sound, but okay, Patty, you do it. Yeah. So you see what the little guy's doing there? Matching hands to feet. This is like a precursor to Twister. All of you that are old enough, or well, I see Twister still at the store. So, but you see skills that the children, that he's using as far as matching, coordination, bending down, standing back up, crossing midline. You could certainly make these kind of mats and have multiple children doing them at once, or a child walking along with the child and calling out 2 hands, foot, 2 feet, hand, to try to encourage what's happening for each of these type of activities. All right, let's look at another one. Oops. Okay, here's another one. And again, as you watch it, children are side by side. Look at and think about what kind of skills, motor skills, there's some social skills, school readiness skills that children might be learning or practicing as they do this activity. So they're picking up a toilet paper roll, very easy to make, with construction paper on it with the different colors. What's on the floor are construction paper of different colors. So you can see they're matching, they're running, they're quick stopping when they see the color or pass the color and have to go back, changing directions, following the rules. So when the blue one fell for the child on the right, he stood it back up because he knows he's supposed to stand it there. If you could hear the peers, really the only thing that you could hear in this is children clapping and cheering and screaming for them. Again, a relatively easy, cheap, inexpensive activity to create, either yourself or if you have volunteers in the classroom or student interns, you could line up multiple of these kind of activities so multiple children are doing them at once. You could partner children where one child might be handing the color to the child, the tube to the child, the toilet paper roll, and saying, what this is pink, this is orange, this is green. So you could see them cheering. It didn't matter who won or came in second. They're all cheering and excited for the child. Okay, so then this slide just shows, the importance of social time too. So while children are learning relational skills, cognitive or pre-academic skills, also motor time is a time for children to learn social skills. So the picture on the left reminds me of my cousin in Minnesota who did curling, where they're trying to use a broom and they're on teams or with each other, helping each other push balls through the blocks. The one on the right, children are jumping from one hula hoop to the other and supporting each other. And you see it's a multi-age group there. Could be at a parent night or family night. In this activity, we've seen, you won't be able to hear it too, I guess. But this is something that the teacher created out in the parking lot or on the sidewalk, where there's all kind of activities on this obstacle course or maze that the child does. This little guy is calling out the numbers. Mom is holding another child, is prompting him about what to do, using the words. So modeling, curling around. Now she'll tell them hop with both feet, use both feet to hop. So all kind of different activities that are done. And you can see all the skills that he or she is using too. Run down the path, stop, clap 3 times in this one. So she has to tell him that. She tells him. Sidestep, so she's going to show him or prompt him how to do this. So different motor skills, hand skills, bending down, so following directions. A couple different opportunities for him to do that. Then the letters of the alphabet. So trying to follow the letters of the alphabet. Again, you could simplify an activity like this or keep it complex. You could have peers do it together where one is calling out things. You could have children spell different words and only put a few letters on there. So definitely cognitive, pre-academic, as well as motor skills being learned here. You could make it more social by doing other activities. So it's at the end here. X then goes back.
Hey, log just time. We gotta jump on the logs, but not in the water.
Okay, maybe you heard that. Jump on the logs, but not in the water. So now he's got to stretch, jump a little farther.
Hey, you ready to spin?
Tell him to spin around. Anyway, it goes on. He's got several more to do. And at the end, when he's done and she claps for him, he's like, again, do it again. So even though to us, it might, I think the video is like 3 minutes long, but 3+, this little guy's having a great time doing it and doing it with a family, a caregiver, and wanted to quickly go through it. So you could imagine creating, I'm sure, something that's outside or asking parents. One of my colleagues, her kindergartner came home and one of their tasks was to create one of these on the sidewalk at home. She sent home some chalk with each child and to take a picture of it if they could with their family and send it in. So, yeah, so he's like, again. And then this is just an example of, I happened to be in Japan 2 summers ago. And in Kobe, Japan, we went to a garden, these beautiful gardens, and they had these type of activities where paths for children to keep children engaged. And my colleague and I were saying, what a great way to keep children engaged while the parents were looking at all the gardens or the teachers were to bring classrooms. There were things for hopping, hopscotch and balancing and jumping. So other ideas. Okay, and finally, let's not forget our families. So encouraging families to embed motor or physical activities at home is really important too, and talking to families about all the skills that children learn during those physical activities. So again, you can watch this and I'll kind of point out some things. You can probably see some things this little guy does with his sister. So the ball hit her in the face. She was a little upset. He gave her a fist and said, "You're strong." He's comforting her. Then he said, "You want help?" He's helping her. She wipes the tears, picks her up. So you can see there were compliments in that, assistance, verbal prompts. He prompted her, lots of affection and acknowledgement. So great activities that you could create to do or suggest to families to do at home and how those support not only physical activity, but all sorts of skills. And then throughout some of these activities or these videos we've shown, there's specific behaviors that lead to social interaction, like play organizers. You throw the ball and I'll catch it. You kick it into the soccer goal and I'll try to block it. Someone who kind of organizes the play of others, sharing materials, assisting each other when they're struggling, and affection. Some of the things you just saw in that last video as well as in others. So what are some tips for creating social or promoting social interactions during physical activities? Thinking carefully about how you position children. You might position a highly social child near a shy child, or partner children who have a natural already interaction pattern, seem to naturally gravitate towards each other. Promote children looking at each other to get each other's attention, though taking into account for some children with disabilities or some children that might be a struggle for them. So using that as it's appropriate. Reminding children to use names and physical contact, remembering that some children are enrolled in multiple programs. They might go to a childcare in the morning, then go to pre-K, or go to Head Start and then pre-K. So having 30 different names of preschoolers in their day, they might not remember, who each other's names are. So teaching children and helping them learn about each other's names to encourage social interaction. If a child doesn't get a response, encouraging them to be persistent and try again. And in your whole classroom, creating communities where we say things and encourage children to engage with their friends by using phrases like, let's play together, let's play with our friends. And finally, I want to talk for a second about adaptations and what are some adaptations we can make with materials and physical activities for children with disabilities. So when we think about the equipment we use, so some of the videos, if you think back, that we had, like the balls that, or the bean bags that children were throwing onto the wall, you might have larger targets. You might vary the size of the balls, the weight of the balls, the texture of the balls. You might put Velcro on the wall and Velcro on the bean bag or the material so that it will stick together for some children. You might vary the rules. So you might need to demonstrate or model for some children. You might need to provide more verbal or visual prompts. You might need to think carefully about where you position children. So placing children who need the additional supports near adults in the room. For timing, you might vary the tempo. So at the beginning, when I talked about taking periodic motor breaks, you might slow the activity down or shorten the time, like children are only hopping during the kind of increasing the heart rate period, the activity part. You might start by with 1 minute and then gradually increase it to 3 minutes. Or know that for one child, 1 minute is all they can do, even if other children can go further. And so that's fine. You adapt it and let that child just engage in the hopping for 1 minute. You might provide frequent rest breaks for children. And finally, actions. You might change the locomotor patterns. You might have to modify how a child grasps onto something. You might modify their body position, how they stand facing a T if they're learning how to hit or how to kick. You might reduce the number of actions. So maybe you're helping them hold the bat versus them picking up the bat and positioning themselves. You might have them use different body parts. A child in a wheelchair might use their hand as opposed to their legs. So thinking about the adaptations we can make so that all children can be engaged in physical activities. All right, so finally, in closing, we want to encourage young children and families to engage in physical activity throughout the day. And in doing so, we support development across domains, as Patty and I both talked about. These things can bolster children's self-confidence, their self-esteem, so how they feel, excuse me, about themselves. They can create healthy habits that then contribute to quality of life. I mean, Patty and I both talk about with our own children starting early, and they are engaged still in. Some of them are runners, some of them play baseball, some of them do these kind of activities because we started early. So remembering that physical activities serve as a building block for all other developmental areas, and us providing intentional strategies to support this development of during physical activities, it's a necessity. So it's not a luxury. So it's something we really need to do. We've provided you in the handout the PowerPoint handout that you have, some additional resources. And this one here by Chung and Patty and I is one that you'll get as a PDF. And that highlights how physical activities can teach children so much, and then just simply gross motor activities. And so with that, if you have any questions, insert them into the chat. There's both Patty and my email. If you have any questions and you'd rather just send them to us directly, please do. We really thank you for your engagement. The chat was buzzing. We appreciate that. So we hope you've walked away with a couple new ideas of some things that you can do either with your students, with your own children, or suggest to families. So thank you very much, and make sure you check your email when Karen sends out the 3 additional handouts.